Top stories in our news today. The Lusaka Magistrate Court has acquitted 6 activists who staged a demonstration at Parliament over the procurement of 42 fire tenders by government at a total cost of $42 million. The civil society organizations have called on the government to expedite the process of enacting the Access to Information Bill. And the government has released 104 million kwacha to pay agro dealers supplying inputs to farmers under the Farmer Input Support Program. And now the news in detail. The Lusaka Magistrate Court has acquitted Alliance for Community Action Executive Director Alora Miti and 5 others of the charge of disobeying a lawful order when they went ahead to stage a demonstration at Parliament against government's purchase of 42 fire tenders at a total cost of $42 million. Those acquitted together with Ms. Miti include musician Chama Fumba, popularly known as Pilato, Patriots for Economic Progress President Sean Tembo, former Zambia Council for Social Development Executive Director Lewis Mwapem, Bono Mwewa, and Miyaka Mwambazi. Delivering judgment in the matter, Principal Resident Magistrate Mwakami Kalile said the 6 were within their rights to convene at a National Assembly for a demonstration over the fire engines. Magistrate Mikalile noted that the accused did what was required of them by duly notifying the police 7 days before the protest, adding that their demonstration was peaceful. She said there was no basis, therefore, for the police to stop them, pointing out that the Republican Constitution gives every citizen the right to assemble. Magistrate Mikalile ruled that the police therefore acted unprofessionally by stopping the protest. Civil society organizations advocating for media freedom in Zambia have called on government to expedite the process of enacting the Access to Information Bill. Speaking during the presentation of the ATI Policy Brief Report, Governance, Elections, Advocacy and Research Services GEARS Executive Director McDonald Chipenzi says the ATI will help communities to access information about what is happening in the country, thereby curbing the spread of fake news in the country. More in the following report.
The Access to Information Bill, which was first known as the Freedom to Information Bill, was one of Patriotic Front's campaign promises to be ready within 90 days of assuming office in 2011. In essence, the ATI aims to give every person, including the media, free access to any information held by the state or its departments. Today, you cannot walk into any government department and demand for information. On 21st December, representatives from civil society organizations met to discuss the importance of Access to Information Bill in the country.
As long as there is no access to information, fighting against corruption will be a nightmare. Big nightmare. It also reduces incidences of fake news and spread of it. If information can be accessed, how do I spread false news? It will be very difficult, extremely difficult. But because nature abhors vacuum, whenever there is no credible information, of course, rumors come in. They will fill the space. Yeah? Speculation will fill the space. Suspicion will fill the space. Yeah? And then there will be rumor milling and mongering. And then you say, no, we are bad people. No, we are not. Because we are filling the space. We are filling the vacuum. So you don't criminalize us because we are filling the space. Because nature abhors what? Vacuum.
But can access to information change the face of investigative journalism in Zambia?
Investigative reporting and ATI will bring out the whole truth about this, on the other hand. And second, we'll eliminate certain things as these are provisions, these issues, weaknesses that are being talked about, so that the citizens now are able to get the correct information, what is happening around them. And it's all about engagement. ATI is all about engagement, and engagement means sharing with the public what the duty holders are doing with the rights holders, so that together they can go forward in terms of developing this country.
The breakfast meeting, which was hosted by Media Institute of Southern Africa, Zambia, culminated in a joint statement stressing the importance of ATI to Zambia's democratic transition.
We want to urge government to accelerate the enactment of the access to information. It is not a discretionary approach anymore by our policymakers. It is simply a right. And if it is a right, it is a fundamental aspect of giving power back to the people as enshrined in our national constitution.
When we come to the election phase, issues of polling stations, I think this is one of the issues that Zambians have grappled with in the past elections a few years ago, and where a polling station is given, but people do not know where the polling station is. People end up going to another polling station while they are voting in another polling station. So this is information that must be availed to the Zambians freely, and if the access to information is there, it would help.
Currently, the percentage of Zambians who are rich, who are voting the country's wealth, they constitute 1% of the total population. So about 70% of the poor Zambians do not even have access to information around where the revenue is generated and where it goes. So with that kind of imbalance, and getting back to the brief which was being launched today, when you look at one of the lines where it says the free flow of information is crucial to the effective respect of human rights. This is why we tend to say that the access to information is a human rights issue, because at the end of the day, people need to have access to information. And if you are denying them that, then it's also we are abrogating one of the fundamental human rights for the citizenry. So that's how the access to information comes into play when you look at it with the issues of illicit financial flows.
And when presenting the Access to Information Policy Brief, Dr. Basil Hamsokwe feel that there is unwarranted fear of the unknown and misinformation of policymakers from enacting the ATI bill.
Government officials are just scared of the unknown. Of course, they think that this will then, expose them to more of their personal information. There is unwarranted fear that all information, including personal information regarding the health of a person, their bank accounts, and other personal details would be easily revealed. Another major assumption is that, which is incorrect, is that the enactment of the ATI law in Zambia may affect state security.
Last year, Minister of Justice Given Lubinda promised that the Access to Information Bill was going to be presented to Parliament in September 2017. But in August this year, Minister of Information and Broadcasting Services, Dora Celia, says the Ministry of Justice has concluded its review of the Access to Information Bill and is yet to write to her. But the question these stakeholders are asking is, when is the Access to Information Bill going to be enacted?
Access to information is in the same brackets with the political parties bill. This week we were supposed to have had cabinet legislation committee meeting. Unfortunately, we couldn't because of the reasons that I've explained. And also just to inform your viewers and your listeners that the consideration of the Access to Information Bill is consideration of 12 other related pieces of legislation. It is not just one bill. There are 12 other bills or acts of parliament that have a bearing on the Access to Information law and vice versa. And because of that, we need quite some time. But we already handled it through internal legislation. What is being awaited now is cabinet legislation, and after that we'll present to cabinet. So that also is on our calendar, and we just have to wait.
Favorite Kalando reporting for QTV News in Osaka.
Thank you so much, Favorite, for that report. Secretary to the Cabinet, Roland Msiska, has justified the government's decision to award civil servants salary increments amidst austerity measures. Dr. Msiska says there are perimeters at which the Ministry of Finance has set for increasing salaries for civil servants while austerity measures are being implemented. In an exclusive interview with QTV News, Dr. Msiska states that for as long as their parameters are not blown, any pay rise which government makes will still remain within the austerity measures. Dr. Msiska says that this entails balancing the price elasticity of supply PASS against the gross domestic product GDP and the revenues the country is able to generate. Asked whether President Edgar Lungu has accepted to have a pay rise amidst austerity measures, Dr. Msiska says that President Lungu cannot be deprived of his accrued rights without changing the law. Dr. Msiska says that the conditions of service for the President are enshrined in the President's Benefits Act. He says that this means that not until this Act and other subsidiary laws are changed, the condition of service for the President will remain the same, and government will ensure that what is written is provided for. Dr. Msiska, however, states that it is the desire of the President to have such laws changed and has since directed that they be relooked at. He says that to this effect, 14 laws are being amended, and that once these laws go through internal legislative processes and through cabinet, the country will hear about them.
In 2015, the President went to Parliament and issued a very clear instruction that we have conditions that are onerous and that we needed to actually look at those particular things. Look at our pension systems, because you cannot change only for the President and then leave the rest of the system in one way. He desires that should happen. But there are rules that we have to change. You see, for example, the conditions of the service of the President are enshrined in the President's Benefits Act. So until you change that particular rule, and the other about 13 related pensions law, what the current government thought was important. These are the principles, the parameters the President has given us. That look, if you are going to give me 60%, then everybody must have 60% of whatever it is that you're talking about. So that there is a level of equity and justice in the way you are administering these particular elements of conditions of service. Now I know the next question you are going to say, but how come you have not been able to finish? Oh yes, because there is a lot of consensus to be built. For example, to change the pension system, you have to do actuarial studies to find out what these new parameters that you are suggesting, the impact is going to have on the ability of the pension system to pay. So I can tell you confidently that there are about 14 or so laws that are being amended. And very soon, once they've gone through the internal legislative process, have gone through cabinet, and all the relevant consultations, you will hear about them. Yeah, and the President was serious about this. And actually, you'll see it done. The point is that if we change the rules before he finishes his term, then obviously the parameters change. If the law remains the same, then how do you deprive him of what is known as accrued rights? We are a country of laws. In this country, when you have accrued benefits, only the individual can say, I don't want these benefits. But the state has a responsibility to make sure that what is written is provided for.
Still in the news, the Treasury has released 104 million kwacha to pay agro-dealers supplying inputs to farmers under the Farmers Input Support Program, FISIP. Agriculture Minister Michael Katambo has confirmed the development to QNews, saying the funds were released on Wednesday, 19th December 2018 by the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Katambo says that the ministry has been having a challenge with some agro-dealers who have been refusing to give farmers farming inputs because they have not been paid. And the minister has disclosed that a total of 900,000 farmers out of the targeted 1 million under the FISIP have so far made their 400 kwacha contributions towards the FISIP and are receiving the input. Mr. Katambo adds that it is anticipated that the rate of deposits by farmers will increase by the end of the month. He has further disclosed that the Ministry of Agriculture, through the Seed Certification and Control Institute, has developed seeds that are drought resistant, taking into account the current rain pattern.
For the FISIP program, as of yesterday, because we faced challenges with agro dealers trying to deny access to our farmers for them to access their inputs. But now that this money, about 104 million, has been paid to agro dealers, so that at least they can start to access their inputs. In the direct redeeming, everything is progressing very well in all the districts across the country, and we obviously anticipate an increase in the rate of deposits. For now, the exact total of contributions from the targeted 1 million farmers is now close to 900,000 this time. So as of last season, we were, by this time the figures were very, very low. So here we've found that the figures have increased so much. And especially also the government contracted, or the ministry contracted about 4 companies who are contracted to supply fertilizer. And also it is going on very well because these companies were given letters of credit which were finalized earlier when they were awarded these contracts. So all these companies are releasing inputs to our farmers who are accessing these inputs on time. Of course, like I indicated in my preamble, in the agro dealership, where in the e-voucher, where our beneficiaries also are accessing inputs, that will face a little bit of challenge because government has to place funds, and funds have to be made available to these agro dealers. That's where we faced a bit of a challenge. But with 104 which was released, and then inputs are being released and farmers are accessing to the agro dealers.
The church mother bodies have been urged to quickly set a date for the national dialogue. Veteran politician Vernon Mwanga is calling upon the 3 church mother bodies spearheading the dialogue process to waste no time in holding the national dialogue. Dr. Mwanga says the dialogue process should commence as quickly as possible in order for the country to enter the new year with a sense of hope. In an interview with Q News by telephone, Dr. Mwanga says he remains an enthusiastic supporter of the dialogue process that is held in the spirit of give and take. He says political party leaders need to start talking to each other as opposed to talking at each other in addressing national issues. And Dr. Mwanga says he does not think the recent Constitutional Court ruling that cleared President Edgar Lungu to seek re-election in 2021 will have a bearing on the national dialogue.
My view is that the dialogue process is separate from whatever the Constitutional Court ruled on, and those are still among the issues which can be discussed during the dialogue process. So I would like to see the dialogue process commence as quickly as possible so that no time is lost and that you don't allow for water to go under the bridge, so that we can enter the new year with a sense of hope that our political leaders have finally accepted the need, for them to be talking to each other rather than at each other. So I'm still a very enthusiastic supporter of the dialogue process, and I hope that the 3 church mother bodies will go ahead and set a date now that President Lungu is back from Japan, when the talks can actually begin, so that the talks can begin with other opposition leaders, and like MMD used to do before, so that the many issues and many problems facing our country can be addressed by our political leaders in a spirit of give and take, and in a festive spirit.
Minister of Health, Dr. Chitalu Chilufya, has disclosed that 915,000 people tested for HIV and AIDS since President Edgar Lungu announced the introduction of mandatory routine HIV testing, counseling and treatment in 2017. Speaking during an end-of-year policy meeting in Lusaka, Dr. Chilufya has reaffirmed his ministry's focus on interventions and provision of adequate healthcare services and facilities to ensure a healthy and productive Zambia in line with the 7th National Development Plan. Dr. Chilufya says as a result of various interventions the ministry has put in place, the year 2018 recorded a reduction in mortality rates and deaths caused by malaria. He says that the ministry is focused on eliminating malaria deaths and reducing the maternal mortality ratio by the year 2021. Dr. Chilufya says that the ministry targets to reduce maternal mortality from the current 398 per 100,000 to 100 per 100,000 deaths by 2021. He adds that the ministry has this year employed 16,579 health workers of the targeted 30,000 health workers to be employed between 2017 and 2019. Dr. Chilufya further states that the ministry is on track in meeting the legacy target of its infrastructure development agenda.
In 2019, we expect to see escalated interventions towards malaria elimination, escalated interventions towards HIV/AIDS epidemic control, and we expect to see rejuvenation of interventions targeting child survival, and that includes a multi-sectoral approach to addressing nutrition. We expect to see in 2019 an escalation in health promotion programs on all radio stations and televisions to ensure that we begin to halt non-communicable diseases. We expect to see an escalation in interaction with key stakeholders. We started with nEWS for religious leaders and for traditional leaders at national level, and I'm happy to report that there are at least 3 provinces that have done these nEWS at provincial level. Luapula is one of them. If I begin with Luapula, please pardon me, that's where I come from. But we have seen other provinces follow suit, and we are confident by the end of Q1 2019, all the provinces will have done the nEWS at provincial level, and we push towards the sub-national level, at district level. We expect to see increase in that. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I want to place on record profuse gratitude to our cooperating partners that have held our hand in pushing our agenda for universal health coverage.
Speaking on behalf of lead civil society organizations, Churches Health Association of Zambia Executive Director Karen Sichinga, in a speech read on her behalf by Charles, head of advocacy planning and development, Yoram CMM, commended the Ministry of Health for the various successes it has recorded in 2018.
Government launched the Health Sanitation Room to monitor health information in Zambia. We also launched the National Alcohol Policy in response to the increasing challenge of young people abusing alcohol. We must commend government for this step because it's an issue which we have been discussing for a long time through a lot of policy meetings. In the same year, with regard to health financing, the Social Health Insurance Act was passed into law. These selected milestones speak of a health sector that is proactive and versatile. We can thus look back on the year 2018 as a year of deeds. In this policy meeting, we will share some of the issues which we think need attention and some areas which we'll need to uphold as we go into 2019. The first issue we would like to bring is the first ever kidney transplant which happened at UTH. Civil society would like to congratulate the Ministry of Health, the Minister and the leadership at Ministry of Health for the successful first ever kidney transplant that was conducted at the UTH by a combined team of Zambia.
The Opposition United Party for National Development, UPND, has not ruled out moving an impeachment motion against President Edgar Lungu when Parliament reconvenes. In an interview with QTV News, UPND Presidential Advisor Douglas Yakalima says his party has observed that President Lungu has allegedly continued to transgress in relation to the Republican Constitution. Mr. Siakalima, who is also a Chiruntu Member of Parliament, states that the UPND cannot allow President Edgar Lungu to continue transgressing in the manner he is doing. He states that his party had plans to move another motion of impeachment against the president during the just ended sitting of Parliament, but could not do so in view of the time it took Parliament to approve the 2019 national budget before adjourning indefinitely. Mr. Sia Kalima says that the UPND feels duty-bound to institute all necessary measures to help the country.
Like the way Edgar Lungu has been transgressing over the Constitution itself. And this is why some of us are saying that we cannot allow him to continuously do this. It's likely that today we are actually closing, otherwise we require now to institute other measures that can help the country. And I'm saying this bearing in mind that we can still impeach him because he has continued actually breaching the laws of the country. You heard how people complained today in Parliament where the President was calling, if you see 10 thieves, just know that 6 are members. You don't behave like that as a head of state. And he cannot say that he was joking. There are those issues that we call presidential jokes. But him swearing never jokes properly, if at all those are called jokes. But they are not jokes, they come from deep down in his own heart. Remember, he carelessly said, so he says so many things that are unprecedented. And this is why Zambians must always check the background of people who want to become presidents. Like the way
Sustainable Innovation Africa Country Director Litava Wakunuma says that the prevailing El Nino climate will affect the country's food security and ultimately affect the nutrition security. Mr. Wakunuma has told Q News that it is sad to note that with all these happenings related to climate change, there is not enough that is being done by the government. He says there is need to build capacity in the local farmers and sensitize them on what climate change is all about and the effect it brings. Mr. Wakunuma adds that it is also important to form institutional frameworks within communities to help the farmers adopt climate-smart agricultural practices.
It's sad. It will affect our food security and ultimately our nutritional security. How do we overcome this? Number one, we need to build capacity within our farmers, first of all, to understand what climate change is and its effects. And secondly, we need to have institutional frameworks within those communities and clusters of farmers within their cooperatives to actually adopt, climate-smart agricultural practices, agroecological practices, the use of agroforestry in terms of agriculture production. The third thing that we need to look at really is to strengthen mechanisms, that are going to allow farmers to grow crops that are resilient, crops that don't require so much water, they don't require so much, in terms of usage of resources in the environment, and that you can be able to produce food. Much of it right now what we are producing depends on the high use of chemical fertilizers and herbicides. So we need to have a whole shift. And so let's stop glorifying the industrial type of agriculture and begin to look at very peasant systems that allow our farmers to actually survive.
Meanwhile, Caritas Zambia Program Specialist Livelihood and Climate Change Msamba Mubanga says there is need to ensure that policies being developed in the agricultural sector respond to the needs of the small-scale farmers in the country. Ms. Mubanga has told Q News that most of the agricultural policies that are being developed favor commercial type of farming.
When you look at the agriculture sector, I think what we have seen is that most of the policies that are being developed favor commercial type of farming. For example, I think if you look at the agriculture policy, it's really inclined towards the promotion of mechanized type of agriculture. So then if you look at the small-scale farmers and the current level of production, are they really able to really venture into mechanized type of agriculture? So really, it has to be a balanced way of promotion to ensure that even farmers or local people who can't really manage those machines are really able to go into farming. And I think if we talk about farming being a business, what strategies or what programs are they promoting that ensure that even small-scale farmers can manage, for example? Because if you look at right now, the current seed that's available in the Farmer Input Support Program, it's hybrid seed. And not all small-scale farmers are under that program. So then if you look at those farmers who are not on that program, The current price for a 25 kg of Zamseed seed is at 840. So if, say, a farmer has to grow a number of hectares, if they have to ensure that at the end of the day they have good yields which they can even use to generate good income and ensure that they make a living out of it.
The non-governmental gender organizations coordinating council, nEWS, has instituted investigations into the revelations that about 5,000 girls fell pregnant in Chipata City in the third quarter of 2018. nEWS Executive Director Ngwase Mwale says our organization will engage the officers where the statistics emanated from in order to verify the information before giving out a comprehensive statement. Ms. Mwale has told QTV News that the issue of child marriage is of great concern to the women movement because a lot of girls are falling out of school system as a result of pregnancy.
nEWS regarding the statistics of is it 5,000 girls falling pregnant within a month. We would like to undertake our own investigation because the source of that statistic for us was not verified, and we've requested our members on the ground to engage with where the statistics came from or emanated from. We've also requested our members to do their own investigation. Only when that is done and we are able to verify the figures, nEWS will come back and issue our position accordingly. But by and large, the issue of child marriages remains of great concern to us as a women's movement because a number of girls are falling out of the school system and also their future is getting impacted as a result of not progressing. Because even when you look at the numbers of the girls that return to school after giving birth, we are not very happy with the percentage so far because less than half return after falling off the school system as a result of pregnancy. So that area remains an area of priority for us, and this is the whole reason why we want to investigate the statistics that were recently announced to be able to verify and give our position.
Meanwhile, Women-in-Law in Southern Africa, WUSA Assistant Programs Officer Matwin Haziondo says that the organization is working with traditional leaders in curbing teenage pregnancies and child marriages in the country. And Mrs. Haziondo says that the 5,000 teenage pregnancies recorded in Chipata in the third quarter of 2018 makes very sad readings. She says that this calls for the concerted efforts of everyone to address. Mrs. Haziondo notes that many of these girls are school-going children, which means that they have to stop school, which creates a gap in them attaining education.
We are working with traditional leadership. For me, that story about 5,000 girls really makes a very sad reading because then you're seeing all the challenges that these young girls are going to face. Most of them are probably of school-going age. It means that at some point they have to stop going to school because they have to take care of this baby that they have. They probably can't get hold of the father of that child. So what happens? The burden is left on the girl and her parents to take care of this new baby. And so this means that there's a gap in terms of them attaining their education. So as Women-in-Law in Southern Africa, one of the things that we do is we work around a lot of community sensitizations. On the law, the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Act, what does it talk about? On issues around the Education Act and so on and so forth, to sensitize the masses on the need for them to go back, the girls to go back into school. We also partner with some of the organizations who are dealing with young people. We partner with them, we take those girls on internship. They come into the organization, they work with us, they learn a lot. They're in school, by the way, they're still in school, so they come, it's a
Attorney General Likando Kalaluka has directed the Zambia Institute of Advanced Legal Education, ZIALE, to work out strategies of raising the profile of the drafting program so that it can attract national and international students. And Mr. Kalaluka has bemoaned the low number of trained drafts persons in the country. Zambia only has 231 trained draft persons in the country. Mr. Kalaluka says that the absence of legislative drafting skills amongst many lawyers has led to ambiguous and unclear instruments which have cost government and the private sector millions of dollars in losses from unnecessary litigations. He said this in a speech read on his behalf by former clerk of the National Assembly, Doris Mwinga. More in the following report.
That legislation is not the exclusive province of lawyers, and that a wide variety of input is important for making laws practical and effective. Legal professionals who are experts remain indispensable for legislative drafting. I am informed that this year 22 lawyers are graduating from the program. This brings the number to 231 trained draftspersons since Riale started doing this program in June 1998, a total of 17 intakes. Congratulations. Although it is not my intention to underrate what we have achieved over the years, clearly this number is insufficient. Zambia and indeed other countries in the region still require more expertise in legislative drafting. We need sufficient numbers of legal expertise to meet the drafting and interpretation needs of all governmental institutions which prepare, review, and approve legislation. There must also be sufficient legal expertise to meet the legislative interpretation needs of non-governmental actors, such as businesses, professional and trade associations, and individual clients. In other words, we all at some point require the services of experts to either draft legislation or contracts or interpret the same.
The new Congress Party has called on the government to institute an investigation into the failure by the Food Reserve Agency, FRA, to meet its target of purchasing 500,000 metric tons of grain for strategic reserves. Party President Peter Chanda is saddened that despite the Ministry of Agriculture indicating that the country recorded a bumper harvest in the 2017-2018 farming season and the agency having depots in almost every part of the country, it failed to meet its target. Mr. Chanda has since recommended the review of the Food Reserve Agency Act to make it more viable. He says it is unacceptable for the FRA to fail to meet its purchasing target when the country produced enough maize.
This is the more reason why you see the ban by the Minister of Agriculture to export maize was not just done blindly, because a lot of maize stock was produced by the peasant farmers and these others, and briefcase people went on the ground to buy this maize, and where they've kept it, we don't know. If they've exported it, we don't know. But what we are saying is this: first and foremost, on the government side, the Food Reserve Agency, for us as New Congress Party, this is an advice to our partners, the Patriotic Front, that the Food Reserve Agency needs to be refined. Let's look at its operation and allow it. Because, for instance, you see, the head of state is confirming where the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo is requesting to purchase maize from Zambia. That is a plus on the side. It could bring foreign exchange if well managed. Now, if the Food Reserve Agency is capacitated to a level where it is a grain marketing authority board, which has the mandate to buy and sell to other countries that leave a particular threshold for strategic reserve, then we are talking about a plus. If we remember last year, the former Minister of Finance and the former Minister of Agriculture, who is now Minister of Information, they went to Kenya and brokered a deal for 1.2 million metric tons, which was needed to supply Kenya. If we had, if FRA had that particular mandate, we could have started to say the forex would have been aimed from there, and I strongly believe that the dollar wouldn't have been where it is today.
Participatory Ecological Land Use Management, PELAM, is deeply concerned that the informal seed sector is still not recognized by the Southern African Development Community's SADC region, government policies and legal frameworks. Speaking at a media briefing in Lusaka, PELAM Country Coordinator Mukatoi Wamunyima says that the policy and legal frameworks in the region do not provide for the functioning of informal seed sector in terms of production, characterization, marketing and consumption. Mr. Wamunyima says it is important to promote indigenous seeds because evidence has shown that they are more nutritious and have more value than hybrid seed. He says there is need for policy interventions that promote the informal seed sector, adding that the current seed harmonization processes by SADC should recognize and respect the rights of farmers.
Here to resolve and recommend the following. One, that member states should recognize the enormous contribution that the local and indigenous communities and farmers in the region have made over time to biodiversity, conservation and development of plant genetic resources, which constitute the basis and agriculture production throughout the world and the region at large. Two, member states must accolade the informal seed system the importance it deserves given the important role it plays in enhancing resilience for farming communities, food security and incomes for millions of family farmers in the region, given the challenges facing African agriculture resulting from climate change stress, economic and social changes. Three, the member states must develop or reform policies and create financing mechanisms to strengthen research and utilization of indigenous plant genetic resources. Four, the member states should create and facilitate platforms for the local organizations to promote dialogue and engagement, transparency and accountability.
Speaking at the same briefing, a Green Living Movement Country Director Emmanuel Mutamba says there is need for technocrats to coordinate and collaborate with the local farmers in the development of policies as they are key stakeholders in decision making. He notes that most policies favor the multinationals at the expense of local farmers.
There are laws and regulations that are being promoted to reduce the participation of our people in the seed systems, and this is scary. So we really need to make our people aware that they have the right to their seed, and they should ensure that they promote their seed systems. And we need to make our government aware that we have the two seed management systems, so we need to promote them, the formal sector and the informal sector. But if you have seen our research, our research in this country, it's more inclined to researching on the so-called certified seed. And there's very little research going on in the informal sector, in the farmer-managed seed systems. So we think that there must be also research in this sector because there's a lot that can be done. We are also, one of our fears is also that the concentration on the formal sector seed system is that you lose out on our traditional seeds. And as it has been area alluded to, our traditional foods play a big role in issues of reducing malnutrition. You know from historical perspectives that our diversity, our food diversity has been key to managing or to reducing malnutrition.
We go to Northern Province where the construction of Bangweulu General Hospital in Luwingu district of Northern Province has commenced. Lupososhi Member of Parliament Lazarus Chungu says that the excavation works have already been done and that all the necessary materials are on site. Mr. Chungu says that works have commenced in earnest since the contractor moved on site. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Chungu says that if one is traveling from Mansa to Luwingu using the Mansa-Luwingu road, the hospital construction site is visible on the right side. Mr. Chungu says that the people of Lupososhi and Luwingu district are happy that construction works on the hospital have commenced.
The contractor is on site for the Bangweulu General Hospital. The excavations have already been done. The materials are on site as we speak, and the works have actually commenced in earnest. And as if you are able to move through and pass through from Mansa to Luwingu using Luwingu Mansa Road, it is on the right hand side, right there at Luwingu. So if you are traveling from Kasama and you pass through Luwingu, just after Rufu, you will see it on the left hand side of the Luwingu Mansa Road. So all these put together, we are very happy, we are very grateful. It's actually a mean UTH hospital. If you are to compare it, it will be a mean UTH hospital because it's going to even offer what we call the training of health workers, nurses will be trained there and others.
Meanwhile, Siavonga District Commissioner Lovemore Kanyama has warned residents of Kabila in Chief Simamba's area against vandalizing health infrastructure. Mr. Kanyama says it is shameful for some people in the area to vandalize the health infrastructure by stealing solar panel batteries from the facilities which is under construction. The District Commissioner has since warned that stern action will be taken against anyone who will be caught vandalizing the facility.
And I'm also disappointed with the conduct of the people of Kabila, where we have one health post, which is almost done. The residents of Kabila store solar panel batteries meant for the health center. Imagine how can someone think so low to go and steal from the health post. And I'm going to warn them that whoever will be found stealing from government items, other government properties, that person will receive serious punishment, because those health posts, they are meant for the people of Siavonga. It's our gift from the president, from government. So it's certainly that someone can think so low to go and steal from the clinic, from the health post. So I'm warning them that whoever will be found doing that, you will receive serious punishment. And to my fellow civil servants in Siavonga and even outside Siavonga, let's work and support the government of the day, the President of the Republic. We have only one president and we have to support him. Let's avoid being enticed by these selfish politicians. Let's implement government programs in our respective districts. Let's not be partisan. Let's support the president. We are mandated as civil servants to implement government programs in our respective offices, in our respective districts.
That's all we had in our news today, but before we go, a recap of stories making headlines. The Lusaka Magistrate Court has acquitted 6 activists who staged a demonstration at Parliament over the procurement of 42 fire trucks by government at a total cost of $42 million. Civil society organizations have called on the government to expedite the process of enacting the Access to Information Bill. And government has released 104 million kwacha to pay agro dealers supplying inputs to farmers under the Farmer Input Support Program. Thank you so much for watching. Until then, it's bye-bye.